everyone, and welcome to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. Gus Kattengell with you, Mr. Jim Eichenhofer to my right, and radio analyst John DeShazier to my left. It should be a very lively conversation because we got a lot to get into. We've hit the halfway point of the NBA season, which is nuts to think about it, but I guess we'll start with the fact that we just got back in town, haven't been gone for a 3-game road trip. Weekend was interesting. It was a 1-2 trip. JD, just overall thoughts on maybe some games that it could have been a little more than 1 and 2.
Yeah, you'd like to see this team, as we've said repeatedly this season, be able to finish out games. The Orlando game, certainly there to be had. One at Washington. So a 2-1 road trip would have been fine by me because the Atlanta game kind of got out of hand and it seemed like it was swimming upstream the entire time. But the Washington game obviously played spirited basketball and played really good basketball considering all things against Orlando, the free throw discrepancy and all those things. And just unraveled just enough down the stretch to not win the game. So that's disappointing that this team wasn't able to finish out the road trip 2-1. But again, some inspiring level basketball.
Yeah, I thought we saw a little bit of everything. You mentioned the Atlanta game was really rough. It seemed like a little bit of one of those schedule losses where you lose an hour and you don't play well. It didn't seem like they were really ever in that game. They got off to a bad start, and it just kind of stayed that way. It feels like the way they've started road games has been concerning, where you're down 10-2 and you have to call a timeout in a lot of these games in the first quarter. But then the Washington game to me was a really good sign in terms of ball movement. It felt like the ball movement has improved, and it felt like I was watching some of the other players, and it's like, have they been watching Derek Queen? Have they picked up some pointers from him in terms of, just keeping your head up and looking for guys? And then the Orlando game I thought was a really good sign overall too. But like you said, I'm sure we'll probably talk about this a little bit, that they have to close games better. It feels like if they're up 8 points at the beginning of the fourth quarter, in the back of your mind, you're kind of bracing for the other team to make a run, and they haven't been able to withstand that, especially on the road.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that Atlanta game, you look back at it, you see a little tired. And I get it. It's the schedule, and everyone plays back-to-backs. I thought that Washington game, Jim, I couldn't agree with you more. That is the blueprint of what I think everyone wants to see. And what I mean by that is your two main star guys that have been here for a couple of years, and Trey and Zion, led the team in scoring and gave you all the highlights. Then you had the rookies, the reason why so many people are excited about that. So you saw that. And in Orlando, Jim, to your point, it's very easy, and JD, to your point, to say, hey, a 17-2 free throw disparity in the second quarter makes a difference. The only thing that really kept Orlando in that game, I thought, in that first half. And then in the second half in that fourth quarter, Jim, 13-2 free throw. I mean, they were 31 of 35. The Pels didn't even get to 15. I think free throw attempts was the most they made. So I get it, but you look at the last 5 minutes, turnover, miss layup, turnover. And James Borrego opened his post-game press by saying, you have to make winning plays. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, and I think the defense also is a theme that we've gone back to a lot this season, was a problem in the game against Orlando too. They're not a great offensive team, but you made them look like a really good offensive team. And I think in the fourth quarter, when they needed a big basket, they had a lot of possessions where they kind of bullied you and used their physical advantages that they had. So that was another thing that I think came up in that game, where it just feels like when you're not a good defensive team, these 8-point leads halfway through the fourth quarter don't feel like very secure. And I think that was one of the things that cost them, is just you're having to play offense at a really high level, and to be able to do that for 48 minutes on the road, it just seems like it's really difficult to maintain.
Yeah, the physicality comes into play. When teams feel like they can push you around, they will, until you put a foot in the ground and say, okay, I'm not going to be pushed anymore. Now, you're going to have a little cooperation from the officiating. That would help, I would imagine. But you do have to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to just let you bully ball me here in this situation. And the Pelicans, unfortunately, have had that happen to them several times this season. That's why it's hard to get stops down the stretch. If you can't get stops down the stretch of the NBA game, you're probably going to come out on the short end of it, because that's where the clutchness comes in, down the stretch, where you have to be able to only execute your offense through physicality and get stops by being physical, because everybody knows what everybody else is doing. It's not like somebody drawing up something brand new and you say, oh, I've never seen that play before.
Right.
You know exactly what the other guy's got to do. Can your guy stop that guy? Can you stop their pick and roll? Can you stop their two-man game? And that's what it comes down to down the stretch.
No, it was tough to watch, because Orlando knew what they were doing. Desmond Bane put his shoulder in the paint, and they just kept going there. They were going to get a whistle, or they're going to get a layup. And you heard JD kind of refer to it there. about this season. They're 5-15, the Pelicans, in clutch time. That's 20 games, gentlemen, that you had a chance to win. You won 5. So let's kind of look at the first 41. Let's just start there, JD. Biggest surprise this season to you? It could be a player, it could be a category in the team, it could be anything. So what's the biggest surprise so far?
My biggest surprise, which maybe isn't so much of a surprise now, is Derek Queen. I just didn't expect Derek Queen to be this good. I thought, he's number 13 overall pick. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss at that point in the draft, and sometimes you miss earlier in the draft on those numbers. Now, okay, you're hearing him play. You hear people talk, baby Jokic. Yeah, shut up. But now the guy comes, and it's like, okay, I see it. I see what people are talking about. Now, I just didn't expect it out of him. He's not athletic at all. He is not the fastest guy in the world. But you see him ball handling against guards trying to pick his pocket. And he's handling that thing. And it's like, no, you can't have it. I mean, he is a heady, poised player to be, 20, 21 years old. And it's nice to see. I was going to go with Sadiq Bey because when a guy comes off of an ACL, you just don't know what to expect. And he's been so steady. But Queen has played above my expectations. I didn't necessarily know what to expect from him. And then you didn't see anything of him in Summer League. And you don't see anything of him in preseason. So you don't really have an opinion to be able to formulate. And then he doesn't start the first couple of games. And it's like, okay, what's going on? But as soon as he hit the court, it was like, okay, I see it. I see exactly what they were talking about.
My biggest surprise is definitely the impact of the rookies in terms of they've started so many games. They've played so many minutes. I don't think going into training camp, you thought that these two guys are definitely going to play a ton and definitely be starters. But, it's been that way since pretty early in the season. For Fear's third game of the season, he's been a starter since then. Queen, it took a little bit longer, but, he's cemented as a first stringer as well. And for Queen, to me, watching the video from him in college, you saw some of the passing and you saw some of the unique traits that people call him, baby Joker and that kind of thing. But I'm surprised by how well it's translated to the NBA. I did not think we're talking about a guy. I loved his passing from what I saw at Maryland, but I was never thinking, okay, he's going to have games where he has 14 assists or double-digit assists. So, yeah. To me, that's been the biggest surprise of just the way that those two guys have both come in and shouldered a big responsibility.
Did y'all pay attention to what happened in Washington? Yves Missi with the behind the back
dish.
Yeah. I don't know if the other bigs are seeing that and maybe they're doing it. But to your point, it is the impact. And I'm just going to add quickly to what you guys sort of did because it's this. They're starting. How many times we've covered the league and sports a long time to get 2 starters in a sport where only 5 start at one time. We've seen with the Saints, obviously, JD, impact the rookie class that just passed here. You might have a quarterback, you might have a linebacker, but that's over 22 starters. When you have 5 and 2 become starters, that changes to me, Jim, your approach to how you're going to run this franchise. If that guy's going to be a point guard, well, then guys maybe you brought in to be a point guard or it just changes a lot of things. And to your point with Derek Queen, yes, the passing, you're running your offense through him. Think about that. Again, it's like Tyler Shuck with the Saints. So you found starters, someone to run your offense through. Now I'm thinking differently how to build a roster perhaps, or what I need, or how I look at it, or what kind of plays I run. That's a massive impact from 2 guys.
Yeah, it's huge just to hit on 2 lottery picks too. Right. We've seen a lot of teams have the philosophy of let's accumulate as many picks in the future as we can, because if we have 5 of them, that maybe 2 or 3 of them will hit. So to go 2 for 2 like that, it's hard to measure how significant that is.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, that's the positive aspect of it. What's been the biggest disappointment?
Well, I would say the team record because that's just obvious, of course. But 2 things have stuck out to me. One, this team's inability to finish in the paint with a high percentage. Now, they're leading the league in paints in the point, but points in the paint, as I said it backward. But for a while, this team was shooting less than 50% in the paint. And it was like, that's not good. But I think really my biggest disappointment for this team so far is Jordan Poole. I just wanted to see more consistency from him. Now, he's averaging 15, 16 points, but he's shooting 32% from 3, and we're having too many wild fluctuations in play. Like 21 points against Orlando, no points Washington, 21 against Atlanta. Those kind of fluctuations where you need not this, but this Pelicans team needs this. They need the steady production, something that you can definitely depend on all the time. A guy who is playing those kinds of minutes and is that valued needs to give you some steady consistency, especially when he's coming in at point guard.
Yeah.
He's got to help steady the ship. He can't be loose with the basketball. Now, you expect that out of Jeremiah Fears. He's a rookie. But Jordan Poole's been around this thing for a minute.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he's got to be a lot more steady, I think, and a lot more productive consistently. Not 21 then nothing then 21, but 15 straight across. Give me that, something that I know I can get every game.
Mine is 3-point shooting. I did not expect them to be a great 3-point shooting team or even necessarily middle of the pack, but they're 27th in percentage at just 34. So Poole having a rough 3-point shooting season, probably the worst of his career, has affected that as well. So you're struggling to finish around the basket for a big chunk of the season, and you've really struggled from three all year. So you add those two together, and you see why the offense hasn't been as good as we thought it would be.
Mine's easy. Defense. We joke about it, and sometimes but it's not funny. Every single night somebody has a career high.
Yeah.
Every single night there's something. We're on the airplane from Orlando, and I'm looking on social media, and Mr. Black has not only a career night, it's a century-setting mark. I mean, this isn't funny anymore. I mean, when players are setting stats, Jim and JD, that, it's the first time this century someone has this stat line, at some point in time, that's got to stop, because you can shoot as many threes as you want. You can go in the paint. But we saw that on this road trip. It was a tennis match. You have to get stops. In that Orlando game, 9-minute mark to the 4-minute mark, I think it was almost 5-6 minutes before the first miss by Orlando took place. It wasn't even a stop. They just missed the shot.
Yeah, guys are getting too comfortable. As you mentioned, now sometimes it's just the luck of the draw. You pick your poison. You say, okay, we're going to stop this guy. We're going to stop this guy. And if the third guy can get us, then we're just going to have to be got that night. But every game, the consistency. And that goes to really defending. You got to be able to defend better. If you have your principles and you say, okay, we're going to rotate. Now, this is the guy we want to take the shot, but he shouldn't be taking wide open shots. He's going to be the guy we'll take the shot, but we got to challenge him. We got to chase him. And then when the guy warms up, we got to chase him. We got to make sure he gets off the line. We got to make him uncomfortable, do something that's not necessarily his forte, and hopefully make him a little bit more uncomfortable, make him miss some shots. And we're not seeing enough of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would call it's kind of like a boat that has leaks, and you plug one thing and then something else opens up. So, I mean, to me, a lot of this, the reason that what you're referring to has happened is a lot of times they're trying to take out their number one or number two threat of the other team. Yeah. And because of that, now Moses Moody is wide open for threes. But like JD says, it's a matter of you got to at least get within his space a little bit. You can't have him just be, not surrounded by any defense. But it's just been a matter of that the coaching staff is trying to figure out how to fix one problem and then something else pops up. So, I mean, you just have to be better on the ball. I think that's where a lot of it starts, is that the guy on the ball is getting beat off the dribble, and now someone else has to come over and help, and it's just a domino effect throughout the whole defense.
And you got to see the adjustments defensively. Grayson Allen makes 10 threes.
Again, seven of those were wide open.
10, and there seemed to be no adjustment to it throughout the course of the game, and it's like, okay, hey, red alert. This guy is cooking. We got it. Whatever the defensive thing is, okay, let's adjust it, because this guy is really cooking right now. And so you want to see that adjustment, and you want to see the physicality that goes along with it that James Borrego keeps talking about.
Yeah, no doubt. Got about 15 minutes left here, and I want to get to a handful of topics. So about MVP, I'm thinking team MVP. I think there are a couple of obvious ones. I might throw you all off on mine, but go ahead, JD.
Well, I was going to go with Sadiq Bey, but he's missed the last couple of games. And then, of course, Trey Murphy now on a heat of 31 points a game in the last 4. So, but I got to go with the Rook, and I go with Derek Queen, because Derek Queen has changed how this team plays. He's a movement generator. Guys move now because they feel like if I move, he'll find me. I'll make this back cut. I'll run for this lob. I'll run out hard on the break, because if he's got it in his hands, then he might get it to my hands and I can get a bucket. And I like that about him. I think he's just changed the way this team flows.
Speaking of guys who are cutting and running the floor and always looking for passes from Derek Queen, I went with Trey Murphy as the team MVP just because, I mean, he's got career highs in pretty much every category: points, rebounds, assists, steals, field goal percentage. It just seems like he's taken his game to a different level, especially recently. So I'm going to go with him as the most important player so far.
I thought about Herb Jones for a minute just because I think when he's on the court, I just feel like this is a different team. And I almost feel like the players believe that. Listening to Trey Murphy on the road trip, he mentioned it. He's like, oh, we just play better. Like, so when the individual player feels their play goes up because somebody's on the court, that's an MVP thing. And you said injuries. I was like, oh, man, I can't go that way. Because Saddiq Bey is a pro. I know what I can get every single night, so that's why I'm going there. I know your stipulation, but he's my MVP just because I don't think anyone had those expectation levels. I mean, hey, can the rookie do this? Can Trey take it to the next level? Zion be the Zion we've wanted? Saddiq Bey, every single time he plays, he can bully ball, he can defend, he's going to get a rebound. He's helped close out games in games that you've won. So he's my sneaky MVP.
I had him for a different category that I think we're about to talk about. But by the way, too, the Pelicans had a stretch. I realize that the record is bad no matter how you slice it, but they had a recent stretch where in games that Herb Jones missed, they lost 13 or 14 in a row without him. So it was really difficult to get any wins at all when he wasn't on the court.
Yeah, I thought about Herb just as MVP because of his absence, because you see what the record is when he's not playing. And I thought about Saddiq hard because, as you mentioned, he's a pro. You can write down his numbers before the game: 15 points, 6 rebounds, a couple of assists.
And you go to the fourth.
And at the end of the game, you look at the stat sheet, he's got them. That's a pro, a guy you can depend on. But I just went with the Rook because I see these guys flow differently when he's playing, and I like the way they play off of him.
Yeah, and when he's playing on top of his game, Derek Queen changes a lot of different things. Jim, I think I know where you're going, unsung hero.
Yes, I'm going with Saddiq Bey. I know that you probably could guess that from what I said earlier. He has 9 games of 20-plus points this season. And so, as JD referenced too, to come off the injury, for him to be as productive as he's been, I think has been awesome. And I'll give an honorable mention for unsung hero to Bryce McGowan's. He has 3 games of 20-plus points. And if you think about it, with all the other talent that this team has, all the other scorers, last season, if you told me a guy on a 2-way contract would have 3 games of 20-plus points, I probably would have said, like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. He might have 10 games because they might need him to score that much. But for him to be as productive as he's been in the role that he's had, I got to give a tip of the cap to him.
Yeah, I went McGowan's third. My second guy, my guy number 2, is DeAndre Jordan, the assistant coach, DeAndre Jordan, because players react differently when they hear it from other players, especially when it's players who have some skins on the wall. A guy they've seen play, they've seen DeAndre Jordan in his prime, and it's like, okay, I think he might know what he's talking about. I think they receive it better. But my unsung hero is James Borrego, because it's hard to take over a ship that's listing, if not sinking, and try to keep it afloat. Now, 7-22 doesn't seem like a whole lot, but we've seen the identity of this team kind of take shape. They play differently. He wanted an up-tempo team. They're still not, quite as aggressive as we like to see them. They still don't rebound as well as we like to see them, but they are pushing the pace, scoring at an NBA pace like every other NBA team.
Right.
And so, again, it's tough to take over a team that's reeling at the time and to try to steady it. So I think he deserves some props.
Yeah, I think that's fair because I think he's made him competitive, right? I think that's fair there. Mine was Bryce McGowan's from this standpoint. I think I've separately texted y'all or said it in your ear during a break. When you get to the point where now you have to sit him because you've played him so much, and in those games you sit him, you can probably make the case and argument that if he played, you might win. Or you have a better chance to, because of the players that are having to play in his absence aren't producing the way he did. That to me makes you an unsung hero, because there are some games that he sat recently. If he's on the court, I mean, he's starting. I just think of that.
That says a lot.
When he's available, he's starting. Not coming off the bench, he's starting. So that's why he's an unsung hero. Most improved player, JD.
I'm going with Jim's MVP, Trey. His numbers have jumped across the board. And as Jim mentioned, we're seeing things out of Trey Murphy that we didn't see consistently. We saw a little bit of him maybe trying to drive, maybe trying to attack the basket. But now we're seeing him put it on the floor, get around people, make some middies, he'll make some floaters, but getting to the rim. And I love the off-ball movement that he has, especially when Derek Queen's on the floor. He is the quintessential baseline cutter now because he knows, hey, I'm running baseline and big guy's going to throw it up and I'm going to catch it and I'm going to dunk it. And he likes that part of the game. And so I like to see that development of his game.
Trey Murphy, definitely. I'm going to throw Karlo Makovic out there, too. Yeah, his counting stats have not improved from last season because he's not playing as many minutes per game as he did last season when there were so many guys out. But his field goal percentage and his three-point percentage are way up. He's shooting 64% from the field, 39 from three. So, I think he's definitely shown that he's a better player, even if he definitely doesn't have the same role as he did last season.
74% on twos, Karlo.
Yeah.
Because he's dunking everything.
Because he's dunking everything. Both of these gentlemen brought up why I'm going with Karlo in that. You updated your stats going into that game against Orlando. In that game when he knocked down that three, he's good for like 2 or 3 now, a game maybe perhaps. But he was 37%, Trey's 38%. Now I know the attempts are way different. Trey's over 200 attempts, and I think Karlo was 37 or something going into Orlando. The point is, though, that when he's taking them, they're knocking him down, and it's not a ton. And again, going back to specific games, Chicago and others, when the head coach taps you to come in and save the day with energy or go get a rebound, JD dunking the basketball, getting the crowd going, his minutes, to Jim's point, haven't been a ton, but when he's on the court, he is maximizing him. Man, he's, to me, he's been the most improved because it's not, he's filling in the minutes because somebody's injured. No, you need his minutes. Mm-hmm. So that to me makes me say he's improved the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. I loved him last season, and I like him this season. I'd like to see him play more, but hey, you can't have everything you want. But when he's out there, you see the attack mode in him.
Yeah, I think that fourth quarter that you mentioned where he hadn't played at all in the first 3 quarters, and then he was huge in the fourth. That's one of the most standout individual performances of the whole season. They have 9 wins. That was one of them. So, that's definitely something that was a credit to him.
All right, Jim, you just said it. 9 wins in the first 41 games. We have 41 left. What is the biggest goal that you want to see this team have?
I have multiple. One is, the most obvious is just win a lot more than 9 games in the last 41 games of the season. We saw the Miami Heat. I'm not saying that the Pelicans are going to do this, but a bunch of years ago, the Heat had a season where they were 11-30 in the first half and then 30-11 in the second half and got themselves back into playoff contention before the play-in was a thing. But secondly, just improve. You mentioned this, improve the defense drastically, and then thirdly, just set up a foundation for next season that you can point to. Okay, this is what we know we are as a team, and these are the things that we can carry into next season.
Yeah, I want to see this team develop the ability, which has been working on this whole season, to close out games. Just close out. When you're in that position, close out. Now, you won't be in that position to win all of them, but when you are in position to win them, close them out. That, and I'd like to see consistent effort across the board. I want to see guys play hard all the time because this is a privilege playing in the NBA. So let's give it every night, not 4 out of 6 nights or 3 out of 4 nights, but let's see it every night.
I got 3 Ds. Defense, dunking, and desperation. That's what I want to see. I like it. I want to see this team understand what Jim just said. We don't have that many games anymore. I want to see this team go with JD, just say, hey, loose balls, no more 50-50 stuff. Every game matters, and fans get it. We get it. I want to see the team get it and understand it. Every single minute you're on the court matters because that possession in that first quarter may come back to haunt you in the fourth when you let it go. I'm tired of hearing that's a 5-point play because you missed the layup and they knocked down a 3 because you don't get back on transition defense. You can't do that anymore. You have 41 games. When you take a look at the Western Conference, Jim and JD, there are some surprises. There are some teams that maybe are disappointing. Let's go with the surprises. What's the team that's surprised you so far in the West?
Portland. Portland has shocked me. Now, they're 19-21, 9th place in the West. But Portland lost their head coach right at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, one game in, yep.
Lost their head coach, the guy who you built this team to play to his style standards, and he's gone. And they're 19-21, and look, they play hard. They play, at least when they play us, they play hard. And they're an impressive team. When they got it going, they got a couple of guys, Shaden Sharp, and Abdia. They've got some guys who can flat do it. But for them to be 19-21, losing their coach, and not just losing him in that manner,
Yeah.
The way you lose him, the shock of
Yeah.
it. You would think that's a team, if any team had an excuse to say, you know what, we're going to let go of the rope, man. We're just going to go through the motions,
Yeah.
and we're going to get paid, and we're going to get through the season.
Mine is Phoenix. I mean, if you line up the Pelicans roster on paper with Phoenix's, and I think a lot of people would say I'll take the New Orleans roster, but if you look at when the Pelicans played them head-to-head, you see the advantages that the Suns have in chemistry, in three-point shooting, in I think some of the hustle guys, some of the hard-nosed players that they have like Dylan Brooks and some of their Jordan Goodwin, Colin Gillespie. It just seems like they're such a perfect example of that they're getting more, I think, out of what they have,
Yeah.
on paper. And so, I mean, I can't believe that they have the record that they have. I thought going into the season, I'm going to be totally honest here, when I saw the predictions and I saw Phoenix picked ahead of the Pelicans, I was like, this is ridiculous. And it seems like I was completely ridiculous myself on that because they've been so good. But it just, you watch them play, and the game in Phoenix against the Pelicans was a rout by them. The 2 games here were pretty even, but it just seemed like just those little margins were the reason that they were able to win those games and come away with a sweep in the blender.
I'll tell you what, I want to piggyback on that because Dylan Brooks has changed them.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate Dylan Brooks' guts. I'm just kidding. But the way he plays changes teams.
He helped change Houston.
He changes
Yeah.
teams.
He does.
You dig in with him because you see the way he plays, and it's borderline, but you see the way he plays, and it's like, okay, everybody, now we all need to play with that kind of edge because he doesn't give away possessions. He is an adjutant. He's an irritator, but man, when you got him on your team, you love him.
Mr. John DeShazier, of course, you can catch him on the radio broadcast, and Mr. Jim Eichenhofer over on Pelicans.com, and I'll pop around everywhere. But anyway, appreciate you for tuning us in. You've been watching this edition of the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.